When was the last time you actually felt like you? Not the version showing up to work, answering emails, scrolling through the feed, and saying I'm fine, but the real version, grounded, clear, fully present, and genuinely at home inside your own skin and your own daily life. If you paused even for 1 second trying to honestly answer that, if the truth is that you genuinely can't remember the last time it felt easy, I want you to know something important right now. You are not alone in this, and it does not mean something is wrong with you. Here's the uncomfortable truth that almost nobody talks about openly. You don't have to hit rock bottom to lose yourself. You can drift quietly, gradually, and almost invisibly while your life looks completely fine from the outside to every single person watching you go through it.
Psychologists are using a term for this more and more frequently: identity fatigue. It's not burnout from overwork, and it's not clinical depression. It's what happens when you've been adapting and performing to external pressure for so long that your internal compass goes quiet on you. And the scariest part? Most people don't even realize it's happening to them. They just notice one day that they cannot remember the last time they made a decision that felt genuinely theirs, or the last time they laughed and it didn't feel at least a little bit like a performance. Welcome to Calm Science, where we take real psychology and neuroscience and turn it into something actually useful for the way real people live their lives every day. I'm really glad you found this episode because this is one of the most quietly important topics in mental wellness right now.
Today, you're going to learn 5 specific, practical, and research-backed things you can do right now, today, that help you reconnect with who you actually are underneath all the noise, the daily roles, and the constant pressure of performing a version of yourself for the world around you. We'll look at what happens inside your brain when disconnection quietly sets in, why standard motivation advice almost always misses the real mark, and most importantly, what the science genuinely says works when you want to find your way back to yourself. Let's get into it right now. Let's start somewhere familiar. You know that feeling when you're in a conversation, saying all the right things, laughing at the right moments, but somewhere underneath all of it, there's a quiet internal voice whispering almost to itself, "I'm not really fully here right now." That is not a personal flaw, and it is not you being ungrateful for your life. That is psychological disconnection. Research shows that between 25 and 75% of the general population has experienced some version of this, a felt sense of being a stranger inside their own daily existence. The very first thing you can do today is this: do one thing you used to genuinely love, even if you do it badly, even if you're out of practice, even if nobody ever sees it. Not to be productive, not to post about it, just to experience it again with absolutely zero agenda attached to it. Cook a meal you haven't made in years. Pull out an instrument sitting quietly in a corner. Watch a film from a genre you'd completely forgotten you once loved. It sounds almost too simple to matter, but there is real peer-reviewed neuroscience behind why this specific action actually works. Your brain stores identity inside what scientists call autobiographical memory networks, the neural pathways tied directly to your personal history, your preferences, and your lived sense of who you are. Revisiting those old joys literally reactivates those pathways, like rebooting a system left idle. Now, here's where we go a level deeper, and I want you to stay with me here, because this is genuinely where it gets fascinating. Your brain has a system called the default mode network, the DMN. And once you understand what it actually does, so much about identity loss starts to make sense. The DMN is a cluster of deeply interconnected brain regions, including the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex, that activates specifically when you are not focused on any external task. When you're reflecting, daydreaming, or simply being still, that's your DMN at work.
Scientists used to dismiss this network as the brain merely idling between tasks. Now, we know the real truth. It's doing some of the most important work the brain ever performs, actively constructing and maintaining your sense of self and your coherent personal narrative across time and experience. Research confirms that the DMN integrates your autobiographical memories into one continuous life story, and that continuous story is literally what your sense of personal identity is built from neurologically, day after day, year after year. Without it running properly, identity quietly starts to erode. So the second thing you can do today is this. Give your default mode network the space it genuinely needs to do its work. Spend 10 intentional, screen-free, unscheduled minutes doing absolutely nothing external. No podcast in your ears, no music, no scrolling. Just sit with your own quiet mind. This is not meditation, and there's no correct technique to master. It is simply permission. You're allowing your brain's self-construction system the uninterrupted quiet it needs to actually do its job. You are not wasting time. You are giving your brain the exact conditions it requires to rebuild you. Here's where things get even more specific, and this one might surprise you the most of all 5. Write down 3 decisions you made this week that were entirely and authentically yours, not shaped by what someone expected, not made to keep the peace or avoid conflict, genuinely, honestly yours. Small ones count completely. Choosing rest instead of pushing through another hour, saying no to a social plan you genuinely didn't want to attend, ordering what you actually felt like having instead of what seemed most acceptable or easiest to everyone else sitting right there at the table with you. Here's the neuroscience behind why this specific practice matters deeply. During identity fatigue, your orbitofrontal cortex, the region responsible for integrating your personal values with real-time decision-making, gradually loses access to a coherent internal value framework it can reliably draw from. When that happens, you start making almost all your choices based on external signals, what seems expected, what avoids tension, what's easiest in the moment. Over time, you stop trusting your own instincts completely. You stop even hearing them. This exercise starts rebuilding that lost inner trust. Think of it as voting for yourself, one honest micro-decision at a time, until your brain finally starts to believe that your internal voice, your actual preferences and values, is the one that genuinely counts in the direction your life moves in from this moment forward, one small choice at a time. Here's a transition you probably didn't see coming. Reconnecting with yourself is not purely an internal job you do alone. The people around you function as mirrors, and the right ones can actively help your brain remember who it is actually looking at when you finally stop performing for a moment. The fourth thing is this. Reach out to one person who knew you before life got this complicated. Not to process your stress or update them on everything hard, just to have a real, easy, unhurried conversation about something you both genuinely care about, completely separate from your current pressures.
Research in social neuroscience shows that meaningful conversation creates what scientists call neural alignment between people. And this alignment actively supports the brain's self-referential processing. Simply put, the right conversation with the right person helps your brain remember who it's talking to. Now, here is the fifth, and it honestly sounds the simplest of all, but it is quietly one of the most powerful tools for reconnection that psychology and neuroscience have consistently identified across multiple fields of study and research. Move your body with absolutely no goal attached to the movement. Not a structured workout, not a step count on your tracker, not something you're doing because you feel like you should be. Dance in your kitchen. Walk somewhere with no destination. Stretch in whatever way feels genuinely good to your body in this specific moment, on this specific day, right now. Somatic psychology research shows that prolonged chronic stress physically disconnects us from our own internal body signals over time, which is exactly why so many people describe identity loss using words like foggy, flat, numb, or hollow. Unstructured movement is one of the fastest paths back inside yourself.
I want to slow all the way down here, because what I'm about to say is the part I most need you to actually carry with you when this episode ends and you step back into the noise of your ordinary day and all of its familiar demands and pressures and roles and expectations waiting for you. You have not lost yourself. You have been surviving, and those are two completely fundamentally different things. And the difference between them matters more than almost anything else I could say to you in the time we have together in this episode today. Please hear that distinction clearly. The disconnection you feel is not a character flaw. It is not weakness or ingratitude or evidence of something deeply wrong with who you are at the core. It is simply what happens to a person who has been adapting so hard for so long to external demands that they forgot to keep listening inward.
Psychologist Viktor Frankl wrote that between every stimulus and every response, there exists a space, and in that space lives your freedom, your real power to choose who you are and how you show up in any given moment of your life, regardless of what is happening around you in the external world. That quiet, interior space between who the world needs you to be and who you actually are is where your real self has lived all along. It did not disappear. It did not abandon you or give up on you. It has been waiting quietly and patiently underneath all the noise and performance this whole time. Every time you revisit an old joy, sit in real silence, make one honest choice, connect with someone who truly sees you, or move your body freely, you are not finding yourself like something that was lost. You are returning to yourself. And returning means you always already knew the way home.
You were never broken. You were busy. You were surviving. And now, right now, today, with something genuinely small, you can begin the quiet and meaningful and deeply important work of coming back to the person who has been patiently waiting for you on the inside of all of this, the whole entire time. Before you close this episode and step back into your day, I want to ask you one genuinely honest question. And I'd love for you to actually sit with it for even 30 seconds before you answer it, or scroll away, or move on to whatever comes next waiting for you on your screen or in your life. Which of those 5 things felt the most uncomfortable to hear?
In my experience, the one that created even a small moment of resistance, the one that made you mentally shift or look away just slightly, is almost always the exact one that matters most for where you personally are right now.
Drop it in the comments below. Tell me which number it was, or share whatever thought it sparked inside you. I read every single comment on this channel, and those real, honest conversations are genuinely one of the most meaningful and important parts of making this show for all of you every week. And if this episode gave you something real today, a shift, a word you needed to hear, a moment of recognition that felt true, come join the Calm Science community and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the psychology and neuroscience of living well and truly knowing yourself again.